So what would we do if right now a fellow student walked into this classroom with a gun? Yes, it's a very disturbing question, but it's been asked far too many times this year alone. According to Adam Peck of filmwarriors.com, there have already been 11 school shootings just in the month of January. But what's causing this issue? Well, there are a number of reasons, but the two primary causes are the influence of violent media on unstable individuals and the psychological issues of the shooter himself. As students, we should be very concerned about this growing problem because it threatens the safety of our learning environment. In order to understand why school shootings happen, we have to understand the primary factors that lead to the creation of a killer. Now, let's look at the psychological aspects of this. Catherine Newman of CNN conducted a 2-year research project in order to better understand why this happens. She analyzed the individuals and found that most of them are intelligent, bright people, but they're seen by their peers as unattractive, unmanly, weak, and overall losers. She explains that they suffer from severe depression and isolation issues, but most importantly, they are alienated from their family and their friends. Because of this, they have a grudge against society. They want attention, or sometimes they want revenge against those who have put them in the lowest social hierarchy possible. Now, this is the primary cause that leads them to commit such a tragedy. In their article, Tragedy and the Meaning of School Shootings, authors Brian Warnick, Benjamin Johnson, and Samuel Rocha explain that this is never a snap decision, but actually a long, drawn-out process. It begins with worsened isolation or even bullying, and it causes the individual to contemplate suicide. But before he does this, he finds what is called a violence coach, which is essentially a person or a thing that tells him that by killing, he will achieve the sense of revenge against those who have oppressed him, or the attention that he never received. It tells him to turn this violent intent outward, which then leads to the actual shooting itself. And the shooting is often random, very violent, and overly angry, and it's essentially the long act, or the final act of a long, sad drama. Now, what causes this aggression? Well, essentially, the answer can be derived to violent media. Violent media in our culture is everywhere. It is in books, television, movies, and video games. In her article, Do Violent Movies Make Children Violent?, author Faith McCallum explains how violent movies affect unstable individuals. She says that the heroes in most action movies are good-looking, successful people who solve their problems by violence and killing. But they never face the consequences of committing these terrible actions. Unstable individuals see this, and they want to emulate this character. They hope that by committing these terrible actions, they will become the hero of their own tragic life. In their article, Media Violence in the American Public, authors Brad Bushman and Craig Anderson go on to explain how unstable individuals absorb violent content. It's a lot like smoking a cigarette. When you smoke a cigarette, you're not immediately going to get lung cancer. Just as when you watch a violent movie, you're not immediately going to get aggressive. But prolonged exposure essentially leads to worsened effects. Now, it's sort of a 1 in 1,000 effect, where out of every 1,000 viewers, only one is actually going to absorb this violent content and act on this inner aggression. But as we've seen, one individual is more than enough to commit a terrible tragedy. Overall, violence in the media and the psychological issues of the shooter are simply two pieces of a larger puzzle. Out of all the research I did, I found more problems than solutions. And I believe that it will take a long time before we can actually end this disturbing trend. But I feel that if we find more causes and better understand what provokes these individuals, we will come much closer to returning schools back to places of safety and learning rather than the havens for terror and fear. Thank you.